Antarctica, frigid, barren, seemingly endless. On December the 3rd, 1961, a 63-year-old woman by the name of Andrea Barnes set off single-handedly across this barrier of ice. On December the 18th, the weather turned against her. A week later, on Christmas Day, radio contact was lost. Miss Barnes was never seen again. This was to be the final leg in a journey that had started for her nearly half a century before. A journey ending in apparent failure. She had not succeeded in proving to the world that the Earth is flat. The argument, for all practical purposes, came to an end when the Church of England was established by law during the 16th century. They rejected many laws of the ancient Catholic Church, and to appear forward-thinking, they embraced many radical scientific notions prevalent at the time, including Copernicus' round Earth theory. With this endorsement, the theory found its way into the schools, which were then largely controlled by the Church. It has remained there to this day, and many children have accepted it without question. Andrea Barnes was not one of those children. Born into an Ontario farming family in 1898, Andrea was a bright child who spent much of her time learning about the world around her. She was inquisitive and precocious, and much to her teacher's dismay, she fervently believed the global Earth concept was nonsensical and easily refuted. Many scientists agree with her and are amassing evidence to carry on her work. By the time Andrea was in her teens, her brother Andy had already decided to go into the transportation business, and many of her friends had turned to nursing as a vocation. But Andrea devoted her time to exploring the world around her and to questioning. She was vehemently opposed to the use of globes in schools and formed a group to protest what she referred to as a load of old codswallop. They demonstrated in a manner they felt symbolic. But Andrea soon realized the only way people would listen was if she made a trip to the edge and brought back proof. And so, on her 16th birthday, she set off across the snowy deserts of Antarctica with little more than a borrowed pair of skis. However, like Marcella some 300 years earlier, she was unprepared for the harsh conditions and was soon forced to turn back. She tried to raise money for a larger expedition, but her cause was overshadowed by the outbreak of World War I, and it became more important to worry about maintaining one's stake in the world than arguing over its shape. In October of 1929, Andrea again tried to focus the world's attention on the controversy by proving the notion the Earth spins to be absolute nonsense. It was reasoned that if a dirigible was to go aloft in England and hold itself perfectly static, then by the accepted theory the Earth should rotate underneath it and New York should come into view some 4 or 5 hours later. In fact, England was never lost from view. The dirigible eventually ran low on fuel and had to land. Andrea insisted she had made her point. But New York wasn't paying attention that day. The stock market crash monopolized the headlines then and for some time to come. Andrea had again been upstaged. By November of 1938, Andrea was prepared for her second attempt to reach the edge. A consortium of financiers were providing her with a plane and a large enough crew to make a legitimate go of it. And so, once again, an optimistic Andrea found herself in Antarctica. And once again, fate was against her. A freak spring blizzard took them by surprise. They were unable to leave base camp, much less make a trip to the edge. The entire expedition was very nearly wiped out. That was the last attempt Andrea made until 23 years later, when she set off alone by snowmobile in 1961. Until recently, that was the end of the story. Early this year, a researcher stationed in Antarctica to study weather patterns found a snowmobile partially buried in a snowbank. It had run out of fuel and there were no signs of Andrea anywhere. But he did find these, a camera and a note. The note says only, "I have been there. The debate finally comes to an end. Signed, Andrea B." It had survived the frozen elements for nearly 30 years. Unfortunately, the researcher inadvertently opened the camera, exposing the film inside. Any pictures were lost, and Miss Barnes' trip is still very much shrouded in mystery. There was no description of what she had seen or how far away it was. But if we are to believe the note, then Andrea Barnes was very likely the first person in history to visit the edge of the Earth.